Welcome to Hot Topics in International Trade, brought to you by Braumiller Law Group and Braumiller Consulting Group. Hi, I'm Bob Brewer with Braumiller Law Group. I'm here today with Harold Jackson, attorney with Braumiller Law Group. Now, we're condensing all these obviously down around 15 minutes. We want to get to some hot topics here, and one of which right off the bat, it comes down to the technology and the semiconductors and the kibosh that we're pretty much putting on all of those exports through the BIS to China. Now, I think about, honestly, where Xi Jinping is right now and that 20th, the Congress, the National Congress that met. Wow, was that a statement when he had his predecessor led away,
Yes, there certainly was some drama behind that.
Even in his speech, though, he talked about technology at least 40 times, they say, when they timed it. He's really, to me, with the action men that he's putting in place with the military, we've got to respond. So let's talk about this response now. What BIS has put out that will not be able to be exported in the way to AI, semiconductor processing, all the way down to even people being involved with the making of.
That's right. It's advanced computing, supercomputing, and it's really targeting semiconductor manufacturing in China. Yeah. So, like you said, and we're noting at the U.S. and China have an adversarial economic relationship, engage in a trade war, and are really the governments at least are trying to curb competition between private entities and businesses. And so really this new BIS rule, which by the way, BIS stands for Bureau of Industry and Security. It's within the Department of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And this new rule targets exports of equipment that's used to manufacture and fabricate semiconductors and integrated circuits, including software that's necessary for that machinery and those supply chains.
It's complicated, though, because when you look at it from the perspective of there are a lot of companies in the United States of America who depend on those exports to China. That's like 30%. I mean, we're kind of shutting them down, too. So everybody's knocking on our door and going, what am I supposed to do? How do I get around this with this? Let's talk about this from a licensing standpoint. What do I need to do now, Harold, to try to continue my business? Or can I?
Sure, and that's a very interesting question because in some instances, business can no longer be conducted with certain Chinese entities. First of all, BIS in the past few years has added hundreds of Chinese individuals and companies to prohibited lists, meaning that U.S. persons can't do business with those entities in China. And so in addition to that, these new rules focused on semiconductor manufacturing actually is a combination of several restrictions and limitations on exports to China. So sort of going to your licensing question, actually, any kind of prohibited exports to China that would require a license, if that license is applied for and under review, BIS is actually instructed to treat that license application under a presumption of denial, which means that they are instructed to deny it absent extenuating circumstances, which are usually humanitarian in nature. Mm-hmm. So you can think of it as a export ban on
I do think of it as that,
on these products and softwares as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it too, though, there's so many different components that go into the manufacturing of a little wafer. I mean, like 300 different components, chemical-wise, makeup, all of that. I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, I read recently that China has been dumping billions of dollars into the market, just like the U.S. To try to catch up to Taiwan. Which, again, I digress a little bit, but that's why they want Taiwan. But what it comes down to is they're still 4 to 5 years behind the technology. They need these imports into China to make these high-quality, high-tech chips that go into so many different things.
That's true. And the effect of these rules, it's no secret that it's a huge blow to the Chinese economy because in this new term, as you know, China has stopped publishing a lot of its economic data that it once did before, showing economic growth over the years. Yeah. And in addition to that, it's going to be a lot harder for China to obtain the means to manufacture these integrated circuits, semiconductors for high computer processing.
Absolutely,
which is exactly what they are investing in, and so they're in direct competition with U.S. power, U.S. money.
Yep.
And that's proving to be, at least right now and in the foreseeable future, very difficult.
Well, we're looking at it almost, it seems like, from a military standpoint. We don't want them to get a hold of anything, even dual use, that can be remotely used to enhance their military capability. I mean, sad statement, but so true as to where we are heading as far as world order now. Wow. That's what it's all about, and I look at it.
That's true, Bob, and that's also brings up some of China's retaliatory measures that they've done in retaliation to these new BIS rules, which we'll wait for more rules from China as well. But this dates back all the way from when the U.S. was trying to restrict activity with Huawei, so the U.S. definitely, China definitely has a history of retaliatory rules, which includes sanctions on U.S. persons and companies such as Boeing, Raytheon, and that goes into defense. So they're really focused on prohibiting things under the guise of national security, exactly what the U.S. does. So it's no doubt there's national security measures as well as economic interests behind this.
Yeah, and I tell you what, everybody out there thinking this is crazy, you've got 60 days from October 13th, right, to submit your comments on this very thing. You know, if you want to, we can help. That's right. True. Harold's here to help.
Absolutely. So, in a typical agency rulemaking, comments are solicited by the agency, and BIS is no different. We are not really sure if BIS is willing to change the rules based on any particular comment, but it does put industry comments altogether publicly, and the agency at least does have to publish them and take a look at them and include it in their analysis in issuing their final rules. And so there's a chance that some general licenses or some temporary general licenses for this rule maybe applying to research and universities could be published afterward, but there's really no telling what your comment would do other than to just show that the industry is opposed to this rule, and that private entities would like to continue doing this kind of business with China.
Okay. Well, we're about halfway through, and I do not want to get out of this without talking about forced labor. Now, I because to me, honestly, I was up Chicago recently, and I saw, George Tuttle. Shout out to George.
Shout out to George.
Yep. And Adrian gave it their third presentation I had heard on forced labor, and I thought at the end of the presentation, wow, this is an exercise in futility, quite frankly. Trying to accommodate customs is to getting something imported from China. Forget the Uyghur region; that's going nowhere. That's seized at the port, But when you think about what they want you to do, there's just no way. No way.
The problem is that what the U.S. government wants you to do to comply with forced labor laws, and even on the proactive side, if you're not dealing with a detainment, is to actually do things in the territory of China that China doesn't want you to do, which includes actually going to China and auditing their factories, auditing their mines, auditing their agricultural establishments, and interviewing workers, analyzing their wages, essentially doing a full-scale labor audit for not only just an immediate company, but all the way down to where the origins of the materials were.
There's no way.
And most companies, unless they are in a niche field, don't have this sort of visibility in their supply chain to where they really can audit, or ownership, or rights to audit, for example, which usually tend to be contractual and if any at all, in these sort of transactions.
And I want to say, Harold and I aren't talking out of school here, because after that conference, I came back and I thought, I'm going to contact some companies in China who do nothing but factory audits, and I'm going to see how far we can get. And one of the conversations with the first two dropped out after about maybe 4 or 5 emails.
Probably after realizing what it entailed.
Well, when we sent them the bullet points.
Right.
Yeah, I know you have this under your social, compliance, but it goes far beyond that. And quite frankly, here we are thinking, ain't no way that you're going to allow somebody to knock on your door, announced or unannounced, connected to the United States, U.S. Customs. It's going to go in there and, as you say, interview every one of those employees and put a probe in there to get all the documentation and all. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly.
The government will shut you down. And they, the last one, Lulu, shout out to Lulu. We bailed on her. She bailed on us, but we were almost there with a prototype. I just wanted one prototype to prove that, in fact, It can be done, but couldn't even get that far. We were even going to maybe pay for it ourselves just to see, but we didn't get that far even.
And you would be a front runner
I
on the frontier,
know.
really,
I know.
of showing some sort of proof.
I know.
Just getting customs to say yes or no. Show sort of some examples because forced labor is a very new, or at least in the way it's being enforced, is a very new matter, is a new issue, and it's a hot topic for customs as well, that customs has just gotten a lot of money and a lot of employees to really start focusing on.
Yeah.
And so we really don't know where it's going to go, and we don't have a lot of examples of enforcement out for.
No, we don't.
Either from under the UFLPA or under a withhold release order. There's just not enough examples for the industry to learn and start making really informed decisions on how to comply with these laws.
So many different things that just bring to mind a mandate to just stop doing business with China.
And that's what the U.S. is really going for, and then that's really what is the whole tie as well to the semiconductor rules, is that it's a adversarial approach from these government agencies, and it's essentially saying we want you to stop doing business.
Yep. So which brings me to why a lot of peeps are contacting us right now, quite frankly, to what's it take to set up an IMEX in Mexico. we're getting a lot of calls on that, right? So our counsel down in San Luis Potosí, she's pretty busy right now with that alone. But hey, before we go here, because like Harold and I could talk about China forever.
We probably will.
That's right. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, we just keep it going. But I want to keep these short. But I do want to touch base with you on a little bit on the personal side. I understand.
Sure.
You're a guitarist.
Yes.
All right.
I
Tell
love
me about
playing
it.
guitar and bass.
Cool.
I used to play in garage bands in high school, and in early college, but now I just play as a hobby for fun.
Okay.
But I do play guitar weekly, have sessions with friends as well, so guitar and music is definitely a huge part of my hobbies.
Cool. And you also are into the filmmaking business in a way?
Yes, so I have a friend, his name is Chance Smith, shout out to Chance.
Yeah, shout out.
And his production company, Inwood Park Productions.
Okay.
He's just finished post-production of his debut indie film called Happiness.
Happiness.
Okay. And it's a sort of a slice of life, day in the life, coming of age story, sort of based on him in high school when he lived with his grandparents.
Ooh.
And
It'd be tough to do in high school.
I think so too. I was helping more so on both on the creative end and on the paperwork end, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
And really assisting him with that as well. So we're hoping for big things. It's a huge part
When's
of
it come out? I mean, the film.
It's still to be determined, but it should be coming out by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, where will I be able to find it?
I'll be able to send you a link for it.
All right.
And it'll probably be uploaded on YouTube next year.
All right. So we'll keep this going on China, Visit back here maybe another week or two, because there's a lot of stuff going on. Who knows what kind of updates we may have. But I appreciate you stopping by, Harold.
Definitely. I'll be happy to come back and talk about China with you.
Thanks, man.
Relax. We've got you covered. Global trade compliance to us is just another day at the beach.